So thank you for those. Right, let's move on and have a chat now with William Clouston, who's a leader of the Social Democratic Party. William, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. So there's going to be a deputy party leader campaign in the Labour camp. Is that going to be polite or is it going to be rude, do you think?
Well, it's pretty fractious in Labour. I think it'll be hotly contested. It's a very factional party, isn't it? And of course, just like the cabinet reshuffle, it's not ideal for Starmer because it's been forced on him. I mean, he probably would have made changes anyway, but obviously Rayner going has forced his hand there. So no, it's a very factional party. There'll be bitter fights for that position, I'm sure.
Do you think, just talking about Rayner, do you think that story has been diluted somewhat about the reshuffle, or do you think that my colleagues in newspapers are just sharpening their teeth in the interim, and they're going to come back with some more stuff on Rayner? I have a feeling it's not over.
Well, there were reports in the Telegraph newspaper about the valuation of the house that she changed in the northwest and so on. I don't know. Maybe I suspect it may. If she wants it to be the end, it's probably the end if she keeps quiet. But it's not ideal. I mean, it's more change, more chaos for a government that's failing, and all they can do, their reaction to each of these challenges is just more PR and sort of rehashes. I think Starmer called it phase 2. You know, phase 1 has been pretty much a disaster. Virtually every metric, whether it's, you know, the fiscal situation, growth, housing, energy, you name it, pretty much they've failed across the board. Small boats situations very chaotic. So no, it's a challenge for the Labour Party, and it's a challenge for the country. I
mean, to be fair, you would say that in opposition, right? I mean, but in truth. Because I mean the Tories, I don't even know where they are really at the moment. But you know, in truth, is it really as bad? Put down party politics at the moment, and just look at what Labour has achieved or not achieved so far in this year. Are they really to blame for all of it?
Well, just let's take two big things that are very important to people. Okay, the small boats crisis, the channel crossings. That's worse. You know, it's worse on their watch. They were elected on Smash the Gangs, which is just another bit of PR rhetoric. It's not a serious proposal. And I think Mahmood is one of the better, by accounts, one of the more able people, but she can't solve the crisis because she has no means to solve the crisis. Labour, it's not a problem actually, this for Labour, it's a predicament. They can't solve it because unless they get out of the international legal architecture, which makes this flow a permanent feature now and changes the incentives, she can't actually do it. I mean, they're talking about bilateral deals with Germany, France and other countries. That won't lift the needle. It won't change anything at all. What they need to do, they can't do. So I think the country's actually stuck on that. So sadly, I mean, I want them to succeed. I want the British government to govern well. I want good governance. But you won't succeed on that. And then on housing, which is the other area, which is vitally important, particularly for young people, no, the metrics are in. I mean, Q1 was behind what it was in Q1 the previous year. Q2's just in. Consents, the House Builders Federation have confirmed that consents are down. So they're nowhere near the target of 1.5 million. And actually, Petrie, when they make these claims, again, they say, we will build these. No, they won't. The government, state house building is standing at about 5,000 units a year. Is negligible.
I have to say, you've really touched on something that annoys the teeth out of me, and that is, you know, we're building houses because the only truly affordable house at the moment is a state-supported property, and we are not building any of those. And so I'm really glad or very few, I'm really glad that you pointed that out because that drives me nuts.
It is. It's frustrating. I mean, I chair a council in Northumberland. We've built a small community council. We built 4. I think we're about the only community council in the country that did it. We did it because we were committed to it. But no, it's very sad. I mean, young people are not getting a look in here. 5,000. If you go back to 10 years before I was born in 1965, 1955, post-war austerity, real bomb site austerity, rationing, the government built over 200,000 homes. Now they're building 5,000. And all they can do is say, well, we hope the private sector does it for us. But actually, the private sector has never built much more than 170, 180,000 a year. So, it's just very frustrating. And we know a little bit about the housing sector. I look at that domain and they have no chance whatsoever. I wish they did.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the private housing sector doesn't want to build 1.5 million properties because, like diamonds, if there were too many of them on the market, they lose their value. And that's the problem that this government has in putting, or any government, in putting the house building into the hands of the people who profit from house building, right?
Yeah, I mean, the state sector capacity in house building is deliberately destroyed. It faded under Thatcher, was destroyed under New Labour, hasn't been built up since then. So it's like a bird, you need two wings to fly. And we say, unless in the SDP, unless you can rebuild this sector, young people have no chance at all. And it's very, very frustrating. Meanwhile, we spend 35 billion on housing benefits, subsidizing people's rents because rents are high. Why are rents high? Because we don't build any houses. They only spend about 12 billion building the houses. So it's unless the government can change that metric and start investing again, then I'm afraid we don't have a future in this area. So I'm frustrated by it. I don't want to come on the TV and complain. I want positive action to make things better for the country. But unfortunately, I can't. And energy, don't get me started on Miliband. Disgrace. I mean, we have an energy crisis.
Yeah. I mean, look, but partly you do want to come in and say that they're not doing very well. Partly, just a little bit. Because that's politics, right? But I totally get your point. But when we're looking at Keir Starmer's government, and now we see this reshuffle, remodel, whatever it is, I've been asking everybody this afternoon, what does that tell you? Because Keir Starmer never tells us what his direction is. So what does that reshuffle tell you about his direction on, let's have a look at welfare benefits for a start, sticking Pat McFadden in there?
Well, best of luck with it, because when the last time, you've got to remember, the Labour Party enjoyed the biggest parliamentary majority since the early 1800s. And they ought to be able to get something through. If Starmer wants to get something through the Commons, he ought to be able to do it. When they tried to have a look at disability benefit and so on, it failed. I mean, that is the predicament the country's in. You've elected people that can't really make these hard choices, and I'm afraid you do have to make these hard choices. We are living on borrowed money, on borrowed time, and unless we, if the French government's fallen, the French government hasn't had a budget surplus since 1972. A lot of Western countries, there's, the problems are coming in now, and we have to deal with it. You have to elect people that can actually govern properly, and I don't see much of a sign of it, I'm afraid. They need to reform some of the stuff.
Do you mean that they've got to be tougher on it? And I mean, and literally, Keir Starmer's got to say, I'm sorry, I've got to do this. I don't care whether you like it or not. I've got another 4 years for you to get over it. I'm just doing it.
Yes, because we're spending huge billions and billions of pounds, not just the chaos of migrant hotels, which is billions, but it's nothing compared to the welfare budget. The welfare budget is basically mopping up the blood of deindustrialization and lack of investment. And it's extremely expensive. I've argued many times it'd be cheaper to keep the factories open. It's desperately expensive, and that's the predicament we're in. But unless you can start investing again in infrastructure and industry and start building things up, you'll never get out of it. I mean, so I'm afraid, yes, it's going to be very tough. Just like the energy crisis, unless you start building some power, grid power again, baseload, it's going to be expensive. And I'm afraid you can't afford the welfare bill that we've got. That's just the reality. It's not an argument against, it's not ideology, it's just mathematics, I'm afraid.
I mean, even the CEO of Octopus, which I think is the country's biggest supplier, was saying today that Greg Jackson, I'm trying to remember his name, Greg Jackson. He was saying today, look, it's cheaper and more environmentally friendly if we pump our own gas. We've got to reopen those sites. But Ed Miliband, he doesn't see it that way.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, it's utterly insane. You've got 40 billion worth of energy imports. It's just, why did we do this? They've actually structured it to enrich good for the Norwegians who are selling us the gas, and good for the French who are selling us nuclear power via the interconnectors. But we, as a country, we cannot afford to import that. You've got to produce the power here. And the frustrating thing, Petrie, is we've got the power. You know, they could grant an extension to Rosebank and Shetland and get them pumping oil. They could expand gas production in the North Sea. They could even do fracking in Lincolnshire. But he doesn't. He's ideologically against all of this stuff. And in net zero, his program is just too much too quickly. You're getting rid of a power source, hydrocarbons and gas, which is so efficient you can tax it, and you're replacing it with something which is so inefficient you have to subsidize it. But if you kill your tax base, there's no money to subsidize it. Crazy.
Yeah. The unintended consequences are often the feast of governments, aren't they? I mean, they try to do the best thing and then it just implodes. I'm thinking about Ms. Mahmood now as Home Secretary, and this drive to match reform, if you like, it seems that the Labour government is trying to do in wanting, I don't know why governments want to be popular, but there's this whole drive to be popular rather than actually doing the work, as we've discussed. But they're talking about putting immigrants now, people who are waiting to see if they're going to get legal status or not, into old military barracks and perhaps even into warehouses. That has been tried before, and it turned out to be more expensive. The bill is higher than putting those people into hotels. So do you think that they'll just go ahead with it for populist reasons rather than actual fiscal, propriety?
It doesn't work in any of those terms. I mean, every single time you try and put large-scale detention on barracks, the people living near the barracks get up in arms about it, quite rightly, because they've never been consulted and it's just imposed. Same as the hotels. It's a mess. I'm sorry on this. I'm just going to tell you, you will not solve this crisis unless we stop giving people asylum. You've got to break the model. I know it sounds very tough, but unless you dismantle the outdated legal architecture from the post-war period, and then have proper deterrence, i.e., I mean, the STP's policy is to any unsolicited arrival gets taken to Ascension. You can stay there for 2 years, and then you go back to where you're from. I'm afraid that sounds tough, but it would solve the problem. You can't have an open border like this; it just get worse. It's getting worse, and Mahmood is highly regarded, but she won't solve this crisis because she doesn't have the means to solve it, because they're fettered. Because Starmer is a human rights lawyer, and it's beyond their ken to do it. So I'm afraid they won't be able to do a reform. I mean, reform is not too good on this either. We've offered them our policy of offshore detention. They should take it for the country's sake. But it's a mess. And the country's crying out for some leadership.
And Emily Thornberry, who has thrown her hat into the ring, apparently, so we're being told, as to be the Labour deputy leader, she's saying that this government needs to listen to the public more. Are they capable of that? I mean, it feels like they're not.
Well, if they listen to the public, I mean, 70% plus now think mass immigration is out of control, and that's legal migration, by the way, which is massive. No, I don't think so. I mean, I bless them. They'll try some PR. They'll try this and that. And actually, Emily Thornberry probably has the sort of base that might be successful in getting the position of deputy leader. We'll find out in the nominations later this month. But it's factional because she was, Starmer bypassed her, didn't give her a cabinet position, so you've got more division at the top of government. So I'm afraid we are in a very difficult position. People are crying out for good governance, serious parties. And they're not finding it, I'm afraid.
No, it is, and it just hands the country into other people's hands as well. It's a very worrying time politically. William, pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much indeed. William Clouston, leader of the Social Democratic